You found a place to belong here in the Circle of Friends. I'm Missy, and I've been with Libby all week. Libby, this has been great.
I've loved it, Missy. It's hard to believe it's Friday already, but oh my goodness, I have loved this so much. And as I said earlier in the week, wow, everything we talk about has just stayed with me. Okay, and I'm just going to say this. I know that we have been in a time of real difficulty throughout the world.
Yeah.
For however long it's been going on or has been happening. But during part of that time, a lot of that time was the whole idea of quarantine and self-isolation. Missy, sitting at this table with you is a harsh yet beautiful reminder of how much we need each other.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Listeners, have you been isolated to the point where all you have is yourself to talk to listen to, or even the people that you live with? That's not enough. It's not enough. I'm not saying to get out there and do what you're not supposed to do, but we need to find ways.
We need to recognize that and to nurture what we can in connecting.
Yes. In
as much as we
connecting,
can.
yep, with others and with the Word. And it's awesome to be in the Word, just you and God, but how great it is to be able to break it open with someone else as well.
Absolutely.
And I know, like, especially with our Young Life ministry that went through that same season and had to find different ways of connecting with their high school friends and one another. And of course, the Zoom call meetings and all of that became very prevalent and a huge resource for everyone. And it's beautiful to be on a Zoom call and see all these faces and opening up your Bibles together and having that kind of discussion. And how wonderful it is, though, to be able to be face-to-face in person
Yes.
and do it as well. But it's lovely to just have the resources and to know that they're a gift from God. But again, I say that because sitting at this table with you has reminded me of how important and necessary that is. Getting out of my own head.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Well, and as we were talking yesterday and reading in Isaiah 44, about the whole idea of idolatry and how that can look for us today. I know what I need to do to recognize it in my own life. And Missy, it took me back to another devotional by W. Glenn Evans from Daily with the King. And this is one that I will always know the date of. I'll always know what it's about because I remember reading it for the first time several years ago and saying, oh Lord, you nailed me with this one. And it did remind me or make me realize that oftentimes the idols in my life were my kids as they became more and more the center of my life. And I think Dr. Evans does a great job of talking through that with us, but this may be one that is a little harder for some people to hear. I know it was for me, but it's so beautiful. So may I read this?
Absolutely.
Okay. As a disciple of Jesus Christ, I must come to terms with my family, my loved ones. My natural tendency is to become dependent upon them. Upon my wife for physical comfort, my children for companionship. If I do this, I am going against everything that characterizes the discipled man. The key word is dependence. God has graciously given me a wife and children, but they must not be my dependence. And of course this is Libby here, I can just interject that I could read this and change it to God has graciously given me a husband and children. No matter what your situation, it's the same, but they must not be my dependence. I must relate to my loved ones as Abraham related to his son Isaac. And I'm back in the reading. On Moriah, Abraham was willing to sacrifice his dearest possession. So I must consign my loved ones to the altar. I must sacrifice them. I must give them up. I must cut clean the lines of dependency forever. To be dependent means to be vulnerable to tragedy. I have seen many of God's children devastated because they built their lives on their loved ones, and then God called the loved ones home. I must always live, in a sense, as if God had already called my loved ones home. I must always place the shadow of the cross over their fair faces. I just want to stop right there. That's very emotional for me. But it's so true. It's such a great perspective to have. I must always live, in a sense, as if God had already called my loved ones home. Because really, Missy, you and I have said this all week long. We don't know when or how, but we know that it's for sure.
Yeah.
That we're going to be called home one day. And so if I can just cleave to that truth of God's got a plan for my daughter and my other daughter and my son, and when his plan has been fulfilled, he calls them home.
Yeah.
But calling us home is no surprise to God. So that's why I can agree with Dr. Evans when he says, I must always live, in a sense, as if God had already called my loved ones home. When he calls them, and how, is no surprise to him. So can I live in that truth and be comforted by it?
Wow.
Yeah. I'm going to go on here with his words. This does not mean loving my dear ones less or enjoying them less. It simply means I cannot love them without putting Jesus between us. And it reserves the right for him as the third party to control the relationship. I think that is what Jesus meant when he said that unless I hated my loved ones, I could not be his disciple. Luke 14:26. If I consign my dear ones to Moriah, it seems like hatred, but it really isn't. Rather, it is the deepest kind of love, both to my Savior and my dearest earthly treasures. That is the inseparable kind of love Paul refers to in Romans 8, and it is born in a Calvary relationship with those who are very close and very precious to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes really deep, doesn't he? Sometimes our toes are stepped on, but think about it.
Well, and I think of the line where he says, it simply means I cannot love them without putting Jesus between us.
Yeah.
And it reserves the right for Jesus as the third party to control the relationship.
It's really back to trust, isn't it?
It is.
It really truly is trusting that God not only has my life in the palm of his hand, but my husband, my children, my grandchildren, my friends, my community,
yes.
the people that my church family. I mean, we can go on with this.
Yeah, we can. And I love that. It does come back to trust and to the belief that God has a plan for everyone. God's purpose is unique for everyone. And when he's done, he calls them home. And so if I can't live in that truth, or if I refuse to, then not only am I not wanting what's best for my loved ones, but I'm actually getting in the way of our best relationship.
Yeah.
I cannot have the relationship God designed for me to have with anyone if I don't put Jesus in between me and you, Missy, or me and Mike, or me and, as you said, our kids, our grandkids. And I just have to spend a lot of time thinking about that, pondering that, and saying, Lord, what does that look like? How do I do that? How do you want me to do that? How do you want to be in the middle of that relationship? And I love the way that we're reminded of what Jesus says in Luke 14:26. Unless you hate your mother and father, you cannot be my disciple. And I think this is true. This is what he's talking about. Unless you put me in the middle and let me define those relationships, you're not following me.
Wow.
You're following your own longings, your own perspective, what you think is best.
Well, and I think of people who may not have good relationships in their family. This holds true in that situation as well.
Yeah.
Because Scripture tells us to honor our father and mother. What if we don't have an honorable mother or an honorable father? What if they haven't acted honorably? How do you then honor them if they have mistreated you or others? Again, having Jesus in the center of that and putting your faith and hope and trust in Him. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
I have found in my life that people can be untrustworthy. There are absolutely untrustworthy people. God is not asking me to put my faith in people. He's asking me to put my faith in Him. And so putting my faith in Him and then allowing Him to stand between me and other people, it will right any relationship. Even if the actions are not matching up to what we desire or what we know to be true or what we know to be right or any of those things, it will make my actions right.
Yeah.
It will make it will settle me in the right place, even in terms of emotionally, because if I'm trusting Him to be between me and whoever that other person is, He's the best filter I've got. You know what I'm saying? And if I am following Him in that and trusting that He's going to work that out, then I'm doing everything I can for that relationship, for it to be a good relationship. Now, people have their own will and their own choice, and they can choose they can choose whatever they want to choose. That's their God-given right to choose how they act, how they respond, what they want to do. But to me, that's just such a beautiful picture of God being my buffer, my filter, my protection, even sometimes in some cases. And in terms of my children and my husband, my grandkids, whom I adore, that even is a filter going the other way, that, Lord, I don't want to harm them in some way. I don't want to I don't want to discourage them. But having Him in between us, that rights that relationship too, and that protects that relationship as well.
I love that, and that is truth right there. And you know what, Missy? There's so much more that I know is coming to our minds about all of this, loving things from the Lord. But it is time for a break, so we're going to take a break and come back in a bit to dig more deeply into this. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back.
Village Gift Barn in Berlin, Ohio carries one-of-a-kind finds, just as unique as you. Our elegant shop has everything you need to dress up your home and your wardrobe. We're dedicated to offering new, exciting merchandise. As you explore our 3 amazing floors, that's over 20,000 square feet, you'll discover everything from home decor and furnishings to a beautifully diverse women's boutique. Are your walls blank? Is your furniture blah? Do you never have anything to wear? We've got you covered. Stop by and let our friendly, knowledgeable team help you create a look that's all your own. Village Gift Barn is located in the heart of Amish country at 4755 State Route 39 in Berlin, Ohio.
Sky in moments of peace, the presence of you makes me weak. Your holy love raining down calling my name, calling my name. Regardless of my pride, my sin and shame, striving has ceased, and I am face down. I love to hear your voice, precious Lord, calling my name. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. Lead me and guide me, make me whole. And please forgive the sins of my youth, and fill my heart with your truth. As you're calling my name, calling my name, regardless of my pride, my sin and shame, striving has ceased, and I am face down. I love to hear your voice, precious Lord, calling my name. Calling my name, calling my name, regardless of my pride, my sin and shame, striving has ceased, and I am face down. I love to hear your voice, precious Lord, calling my name. I love to hear your voice, precious Lord, calling my name.
We're back here in the Circle of Friends, and Missy, boy, before the break, I loved what you were saying about those of us who are in relationships that are hard. Like, how do you honor a father and mother that aren't honorable, that aren't behaving in that way? And putting Jesus in between you and that person as your filter, as your buffer, and then turning that back to our own healthy relationships, good ones. But if we don't keep Jesus in between me and that other person, I have the great potential of doing incredible damage to that relationship because I think I know what's best.
Yeah.
Or, I think I know what's best for the relationship, what's best for that person. And you know what? My intentions might be absolutely wonderful. My motives might be completely pure, but my knowledge is not. And my, my implementation might not be positive either. But I love the idea of putting Jesus between me and anybody else and let him determine what that relationship needs to be. Because it's not just about me.
Yes, that is so true. And even as we look at this devotional from Dr. Evans and how he's talking about dependence, if you put Jesus, sort of like I look at my family whom I love, if Jesus is there, that, okay, I'm going to depend on him for my emotional needs, for my physical needs, for all, you know what I mean? He becomes a buffer in that way of not putting too much on my husband, my child, my
Right.
grandchild, like expectations on them that don't belong there. I mean, Jesus is the one whom I look to, the one whom I am dependent on. And the relationship, the love that he allows us, that's the blessing that comes. And those things can be turned upside down. I mean, yeah, you can be in a difficult marital relationship. You can have an estranged son or daughter, or you can, all of those things. We talked about mom and dad. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe it's somebody else. When we allow Jesus to stand between us and someone else, he becomes everything we need in that situation. Whether it's the desire to not become someone else's unhealthy relationship or problem,
Right.
or if we have a problem or there's a difficulty in a relationship, he becomes the filter then. He becomes the one we look to love well, either when we sincerely desire and want to, and when we frankly don't.
Right.
Like, I don't really care, but I need to care. I need to love. So
Yes, exactly. And I think the other thing too, when it comes to difficult people, and please know, whenever I say difficult people, I'm not just referring to others. I'm referring to myself as well.
I just had the thought. He filters me from,
Oh, that's right.
between you and me, he's protecting you from me when
Right.
I'm off the rails.
and the same with protecting you from me. But here's the beautiful thing about that. If I can just get this through my head, I want Jesus to work on me. I want him to transform me. I want him to perfect me. I don't know what that's going to take. So can I give that same grace to everybody else?
Yes.
Like to be able to say, okay, I want Jesus to transform. I'm just going to throw a name out there. Sally. Oh, I hope if Sallies are listening, please know this is not you. I want Jesus to transform Sally, to continue to perfect her, to do all that he needs to do to fulfill his purpose in her. But I don't know what that's going to take. And maybe Sally, in this process, is going to come up against me. Like maybe she's not going to treat me really well. Maybe it's just going to be really, really hard. But can I just trust Jesus, who's standing between us, to be doing in Sally what he needs to be doing, even though it's taking Sally through some hard places, and she might be taking it out on me, but can I trust Jesus with that? That someday Sally might say, oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm really sorry. We need to just let Jesus do his work in the lives of other people. Does it stomp on our toes sometime? Do people hurt us? Do they come against us? Yes, they absolutely do, because we live in a fallen world where we all need daily redemption from ourselves.
And we want grace poured out on us, so therefore we really have to be willing to pour grace out on other people and allow the room in their life. I mean, I know God's working on Missy. Well, I absolutely have to believe God's working on Libby as well. And so giving each other the space for that. Plus, here's another thing that I've seen in my life. When I know the other person's story, I'm just saying, if you just take the time to really try to literally see things from another side, and it's not saying that they're right or they've done right or their actions are right or any of those things, but as a person who has been, and I'll use the word betrayal, things have been done in my life to me that have not been right. But you know what, Libby? When I think about that other person and what that other person has gone through, it just opened up a whole new world for me. It didn't make their actions right. It didn't make it really, in one sense, it made me a little bit easier to kind of work through it, but I still had to work through it. It was still difficult. There were still
Right.
difficult emotions and things and damages to me that I had to allow the Lord to heal. But getting that understanding about, because we all have a story. You know, I wake up days and I'm not at my best. Well, I want you to know why. I didn't get all my night's sleep. I've been sick. I've got this to deal with. I've got that to deal with. I'm hurting for this. I want you to understand that about me and give me a little grace, would you? Oh, okay. If I want that, can I not see how someone else might want that? And to go even further, what if that person does not have the strength, the comfort, the power of the Lord in their life? Then can I not really, 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 really ask Jesus to stand between us and work in that person's
Right.
life? You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And that's a great reminder for me and all of us, Missy, that, you know, how often do we tend to get the cart before the horse?
Yeah. And I'm not good at this. I am still working on this. I still have instantaneous reactions to injustice or what's fair or what I need or what. I am still as selfish today as I was 63 years ago when I was born. That's the transforming work that's still being done in me. But I know my heart's desire is to offer grace because I know the grace that has been poured out again and again and again in my life.
So, so true. And I am right there with you. And you are so right about that. And I've often thought, you know, you hear the old adage about walk a mile in my shoes.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can absolutely do our best to do that. And that is by hearing other people's stories, by listening well, and then recognizing that you don't have the pain or the privilege of walking in anyone else's shoes except your own.
Yeah.
But we can certainly listen to one another and recognize that while we know God is at work, we don't know how, and we don't know what He needs to do to continue to conform us to His image. You know, as you were talking, it reminded me of a little blog that Lisa Turkhurst wrote, and I'd like to take us out with this. She writes, I've always wished learning to tame raw emotions was as simple as following 3 easy steps. Be mild, don't yell, exert self-control. But I've found that opportunities to make progress with our reactions don't come in tidy times of complete rationality. They come in the midst of hard situations. Patience is birthed through situations that beg us to be impatient. Gentleness is birthed in situations that beg us to be angry. Courage is birthed through situations that beg us to be afraid. And each time raw emotions show up, we can either fall back into patterns that make us wallow in guilt or choose more wisely and make progress. I know it may not be easy, but I believe we can make progress past our typical responses. Let's ask the Lord to help us, one good choice at a time. I think that kind of sums up our week almost.
Yeah.
One good choice at a time. So on that note, Missy, it's been a great week. So thankful to be here with you. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us. And remember, you have found a place to belong here in the Circle of Friends.
This program was brought to you through the generous support of donors and listeners like you. To contact Circle of Friends Ministries, you can write to P.O. Box 345, Berlin, Ohio, 44610, or find us on Facebook at circleoffriends.fm. Program archives can be found at thelight959.com.